Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Erie Arts and Culture, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the first annual Arts and Agency Week, a virtual event designed to explore the ways the arts are being leveraged to raise awareness of systemic issues, amplify underrepresented voices, and generate creative solutions to societal challenges. Funding for Arts and Agency Week was provided in part by the Erie Community Foundation through their Shaping Tomorrow Grants program. My name is Will Kohler, and I'm the president of Journey to a Trauma-Informed Life. It's a counseling, training, and consulting agency. We strive to center and enter into an inclusive, holistic healing journey with all who come to us. We offer competent trauma-informed services specializing in LGBTQ+, HIV positive, and traumatic stress symptoms. We envision a community of trauma-informed, empowered, and engaged journeyers. Today, I have the privilege of introducing Holly Jacobson. With a background in nonprofit management, strategic planning, and communications, Holly's professional background spans for both for and nonprofit institutions. She has created strategic marketing and product solutions for Microsoft, the City of Seattle, the Seattle International Film Festival, and other entertainment and education institutions. A passionate advocate for social justice, in 2003, Holly founded Voter Action, a national nonprofit organization with the aim to secure accurate election systems. Voter Action led a national effort to develop reliable and fair voting practices, which helped improve access and standards across the country. Having studied film at San Francisco State University, she has worked as a director in both documentary and commercial filmmaking. Since 2013, Holly has been the executive director of Path with Art, an organization on the forefront of connecting the arts to low-income adults living in or recovering from trauma. She serves on the Seattle Arts Commission, the Washington Women's Foundation Impact Assessment Committee, and the steering committee with One Voice, an organization supporting international arts and homelessness organizations and practitioners based in the United Kingdom. Holly Jacobson is with us today to speak about their work with Path with Art. Since 2008, Path with Art has been at the forefront of a growing international movement that utilizes the power of art as a means to bring dignity, awareness, and healing to the complexity of issues surrounding homelessness and recovery from trauma. They break down conventional barriers and provide multidisciplinary artistic opportunities to those who have the greatest need and the least access to the healing power of the arts. No to low-income adults in active recovery from homelessness, substance use disorders, mental and physical health challenges, domestic violence, and other traumas. Their mission is to foster the restoration of individuals, groups, and society from the effects of trauma through arts engagement and community building. In short, Path with Art is a comprehensive, multidisciplinary arts organization with a social impact mission. Year-round, individual-based and community-engaged programming utilize the arts as a tool for self-empowerment and connection. Participants gain new artistic skills, develop renewed confidence and stability, actively problem solve, and meaningfully engage in community. With the pandemic, they responsively expanded with access to online engagement programming. They provide free software-enabled electronic tablets, digital literacy training, tech support, and internet access, which closes the digital divide while alleviating social isolation and increasing overall well-being. This presentation is live streamed through Zoom, as well as Erie Arts and Culture's Facebook page and their YouTube channel. The session will conclude with a question and answer period. If you have any questions, please type them in the text box. At the end of the presentation, I will read the questions to Holly for answering. Thank you for being present with us today, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Will. And thank you so much for that nice introduction. I feel like you've done so much that I don't have to, my presentation's done, but I want to thank you for your work regarding trauma to support the principles around trauma-informed care and train folks. That's something that we do through with our teaching artists and our creative mentors. And some of our, pre-pandemic, we were reaching out into the arts community here in Seattle to share arts trainings in the principles of trauma-informed care. I'm going to talk today about a little bit about Path with Art and what we do, and a little bit about, just to give you some context, but also why art works and why we think art works. And I really think it's, when you read the goals of the Arts and Agency Week from Erie Arts and Culture, that was basically our mission statement and how the work that we do. So we're right in alignment. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully successfully. I'm on a colleague's computer because nothing is working technologically for me today. So bear with me. So the talk I'm going to give today is called Creativity is a Path to Resilience. Art Transforms Us. And every spring we have an event called Art Transforms Us. And last year was the first time we went online. And it was really cool because we could connect with folks from all over the world through streaming on Facebook and YouTube and all the other channels. And this is something that came out of that.
Buonasera from Rome and the Spanish Steps.
My name is Selena and I live in Singapore.
Hi everyone, we are from Dubai.
From Madrid.
From Moscow.
Scotland. Antigua, Guatemala.
Florida.
From Lima, Peru.
Hi, I'm Mattia and I live in Singapore and I'm 11 years old.
Los Angeles, California.
It's Beth from Liverpool in the UK.
I live in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Seattle, Washington.
Karachi, Pakistan. In Botswana.
In Ethiopia.
Art has always inspired me.
Art makes your life creative, and whenever I do art, it makes me happy.
I think art is really important because it speaks to our subconscious.
Art is just a way to express your emotions and feelings.
Just realizing that there are no boundaries. Realizing that expressions are limitless.
I did a trip across America to research arts and homelessness projects. Met the fabulous Path with Art, and that to me signified what art is, which is community and connectedness and the best of what we are as human beings.
Made me appreciate the beauty in everything that I see around me.
Some of the art I appreciate is my mom's painting of flowers. She died more than 20 years ago, but I keep it here in my office.
We can come together to create something meaningful and have fun in the process of making art together.
Art allows me to see and feel the beauty in life.
Art makes my life meaningful because it inspires me to go places.
For me, art is just something to get my mind off daily rat race in corporate America and just enjoy life.
I love the creative process, the process of starting with an empty page or canvas or screen and chipping away at an idea or a feeling.
I see art pieces that my children make, and for me, they're special because they're happy, you know, they're expressions of their happiness.
So my name is JJ, and I work at Path with Art. Our most vulnerable neighbors are more isolated than ever, and our organization provides meaning, creative engagement, community.
And art has made my life more meaningful because it allows me to tap into a more creative side.
Art feeds us all.
Art transforms me in the way that I can express myself through music without being judged.
So it reminds you to do what you love and love what you do.
I was involved with Path with Art with their music classes, and I had fantastic teachers that were able to open my eyes.
Music and art has the power to bring us together in community, to lift us up, and to transform us.
Art can take you to paths that you will discover in the process.
We can all relate to art, whether it's music, writing, poetry. It tells a story, and it is therapeutic, it's healing.
For me, art is everything. I mean, I couldn't live without art.
Um,
Buonasera from Rome and the Spanish set.
So you're going to have to bear with me. There we go. So last year when the pandemic hit and we, instead of having our Art Transforms event luncheon, which is a fundraiser that we do, we, because all our programs are free, we don't have earned income at this time, we invited the rest of the world in to share their experiences of art. And it was really powerful. And that was kind of all of the world, including the Path with Art world, sharing their experience of art. But our mission actually has just changed. We just adopted a new mission, which is that we foster the restoration of individuals, groups, and society from the effects of trauma through arts engagement and community building. And I would say our mission statement has changed, but our mission hasn't changed. Our mission used to call out specific traumas, and we decided that that could be stigmatizing in itself as we seek to destigmatize through art. Because one of the things you'll notice, that I noticed from that video that's so powerful, is that it is a universal language. It's a human language, the language of art. And so it takes us out of our circumstance and into our humanity. And Path with Art's vision, because I think it's really important to share this vision, is that a world where arts are recognized as transformative, connecting the individual with self and the self with communities and societies. And that's available for everybody. And that is really what kind of drives us. We've realized that not only is art healing for individuals, but art is also healing for society as well, but not just, it's healing to bring us all together. And when I first started at Path with Art about 8 years ago, that wasn't as widely recognized as it is. And I think it's the work of so many great organizations and artists and practitioners that you featured, including Erie Arts and Culture, my friend David Tovey, who will be on from Arts and Homelessness International tomorrow. It's there's just been a lot of work done in the last 8 years, and people are realizing how that changes, how important and critical art is to being human. In fact, fun fact, it's in the Charter of Human Rights, art access is. The power of our work, Path with Art's work, lies at the nexus of art and social impact. And Patrick from Erie Arts and Culture wanted me to talk about our partnerships. We have a unique model, and it's a model that is not necessarily complicated. It's just a very unsiloed model, and we are definitely at the nexus of art and social impact. So we work with social service partners who refer our participating artists, and we work with teaching artists who we train through the principles of trauma-informed care and the values of our community. And we also work with arts organizations to supply access, and out of that comes hope, belonging, renewal, recovery, empathy, because again, it's not just the individuals we serve, but those individuals also extend to actually become the community and society around us. So you can see right now, just here in Seattle, and we've started to expand beyond just because of the pandemic, but we work with about 45 social service agencies, and we work with about 35 arts and cultural partners. And the arts and cultural partners give us space to do our classes when we're not in a pandemic, and they also give us tickets to go to the ballet or the opera in group settings, which create community. And one thing we hear from our participating artists is not just that we provide arts engagement, but it's the community piece that helps folks thrive. And I think that's something that creative engagement does, is it can bring you into community. So what do we do at Path with Art? We do arts education, and we do some of those arts and cultural spaces all over the Seattle region. We do site-based workshops. Now we do them online, but where we go to a social service partner, we have partners like King County Drug Diversion Court and Casa Latina, or specific social service partners where we'll go and do those site-based workshops. We have a choir we have 2 choirs. We have our regular Path with Art Singers Choir, and here they are singing for the Pearl Jam home shows here in Seattle to support and bring awareness around the issues surrounding homelessness at the Mariners, our baseball team. And we have a veterans choir too. We have a veterans cohort program as well. We have a program called Access Art, which is where we go to museums and theaters and arts and cultural institutions. And we have our own exhibitions, which where we invite the public in to group shows, and we have external exhibitions, and we do showcases, really powerful performing arts showcases, and to hear people sing and read their own poetry. It's very powerful and empowering to share your work, and scary. It takes a lot of courage to share your work with the world. We have a program called Community Connections, which connects our people from all walks of life together. This is a photograph from our Community Connections piece in 2019 that was a multi-year project that is still going on. It's a traveling exhibit with the internationally renowned and MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant recipient, Trimpen, who has worked with he's one of our teaching artists. We're lucky that he's in our community, and he worked with artists with lived experience of homelessness as they wrote poetry, and that poetry inspired visual arts, and then that inspired compositions for this wagon that actually belonged to Trimpen's father. His father made it in Germany, and so it's all told through the voices. It amplifies through speakers, poetry and music from people with lived experience of homelessness. And like I said, before the pandemic, we did arts partner trainings. Right now, we're just trying to support our arts and cultural partners get back up to speed. So I'd like to ask Will if there's any questions specifically about Path with Art, and if not, I'll go ahead.
So far, there is nothing on the Zoom Q&A and chat, and I don't know if there's anything on the Facebook yet.
Well, I'll just keep talking until chime in and say there's a question. So.
I will. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. So, so right now we believe that there is an alignment between this moment that we're in as a world, really, and the heart of our mission. And art transforms us is our response to the future. We believe that that art can not just transform us, but art can transform our society as well. That it's a statement of truth. It's science. Research shows that in creative engagement improves mental health, decreases anxiety and depression, reduces chemical dependencies, and encourages self-actualization. And our programs foster communication, because when we connect as human beings, we develop empathy and understand which are the core qualities of healthy communities. Path with Art builds that connection at almost every level. I won't say every level, but many levels. And because as I said earlier, art connects us, enables us to see each other as humans. So one of the things we've noticed, and we talked about why does this work? Because science notates that trauma, and Will, you could speak to this better than I could. Trauma wires your brain. The impact of trauma on identity is heavy. It actually changes your neural pathways and kind of gets you stuck into creating some of the same mistakes or falling into the same patterns. And I know 2 things that work really well to counter that. One is nature, and the other is art. So trauma doesn't, like I said, a number on our self-identity from which all of our reality grows. And there's this quote from Georges Braque, Cubist painter, who says that art is a wound turned into light. I don't think all art has to be a wound turned into light. In fact, we have artists who we work with now who are with us who are like, I'm done with that. I'm done with my trauma. I want to work on new things. But art helps them get through to that place. And so when we're in this dark place of shame, art brings it out into the light and helps us identify it, look at it, express it, own it, let it go. So our theory is that we've kind of formed these 5 essential understandings. And so why does art work? Art works because art making requires personal choices, and that's empowering. When you have had all your power taken away, or maybe you were never given any power through childhood trauma or through domestic violence or through life circumstances, that when you get to choose whether your choices, a word choice, blue or red, that's empowering. You are driving, you get to control that. And that creating and engaging with art establishes new neural pathways in the brain. We talked about that a bit. And that problem solving is a part of the creative process, and it builds resilience. That art offers a sense of future, and that reframing self-worth through accomplishment provides a bridge to community. So that's what we've observed, and that's what we've been told from the artists we serve. So I talked about the power of choice. I'm going to paint a sunflower. These are the colors I'm going to use for my sunflower. These are how many seeds I'm going to put in my sunflower. It doesn't matter whether it's abstract or realist. It just doesn't matter. It's your choice. Art is a new pathway for the brain, interrupting a negative trajectory. I talked about that as well. That's one of my favorite artists in our community, and her dog. And yeah, and I would love to hear Will chime in about this, about art creating new neural pathways in the brain. But do you have anything to say about that, Will?
Oh, I think that we could, go off and talk for a really long time. And I think that is one of the great things about art, is being able to make those connections and make sense of what happened to us, to develop a new mastery over it. We do also have a question that has come in too.
Okay, can I get through this piece of my presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll hold the question. Great.
Yeah.
So the third piece, I'm just expanding on our understanding, and it's that art of problem solving, which is wrestling with adversity and building resilience. So the other thing I've heard from some of our participating artists is that I was told it's okay to fail. And we learn by failing, right? But if we've been told that we're a failure, or the messages we're getting from society or the people in our lives or whatever, our own selves, is that we're failures, we're afraid to put ourselves out there and continue to get those negative messages. But you have to fail. You have to try and fail in order to move through that. And that builds resilience. So that's problem solving, and that empowers us and lets us know it's okay to fail. That's how we learn, and that's how we make art. And the art offers a sense of future, fueling possibility through creative practice. When you make something, you exist, you matter, you are there, and you are in the world. And all of a sudden, the world opens up to you. Which leads me to the last one, which is reframing that narrative through a sense of accomplishment. And that becomes a bridge to community. So for the majority, not all, but the majority of the folks that we've served who come through our social service partners have often been in a position where they are getting kind of, they're seen as maybe people who are not contributing, or maybe they don't feel like they're able to contribute. But when you are creating art and putting it into the world, you're a contributor. And so you're not only reframing your own narrative, you're reframing your narrative into the world. And now I'll take that question and then I'll explain this.
Oh, this is exciting. I'm familiar with this, so I'm excited to hear more about it. So the question that was asked is, how do you share the art in your community? Like, how do you share what's made and created?
Well, that's it. So when I was kind of going through what we do with Path of Art through exhibitions and showcases, so we have regular scheduled, and this is non-COVID times, we share through exhibitions and showcases when we can gather. And we have a wonderful, very talented new artistic director, Shahira Waba, who is helping us put together online exhibitions and showcases as well. Even as we see light at the end of this pandemic tunnel, when we know we'll be gathering in person, we think it'll be a little bit bumpy to get there. We also know that we'll always be doing online programming. So we'll probably always have an online component of sharing our amazing participants' work. So should I move on to explaining this? So what would you call this, Will? You know you're going to be made to be co-host of this thing today, did you?
No, not at all. So I've called it a number, or I've heard it called a number of different things, but I think blackout poetry or
erasure poetry, blackout poetry, yeah. So this is a really fun exercise. So sometimes when I give presentations, when I've given presentations in person, I bring the materials to do this, and we all just have a little bit of fun. But this illustrates how you can, this is like old torn pieces from a book, and I give people pencils or pens or stamps, and people can create their own poetry from the words on the page. It's a really fun activity to do because it's very accessible. It doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time, and it feels good. What I notice is that when we do this in person, people feel really good because they have experienced what it feels like to create something. Plus, it's always easier to work with a page from a book versus a blank canvas. So this is my gift to all of you, to go find a book at a garage sale or one that you want to you're done with, and make some poetry. So now I'm going to talk to you about some of our findings. We are always in the process. We consider ourselves a learning organization. And this is from a presentation that our new program director, Emily Shalvin, just gave, which was just a reflection of what happened in the last quarter of our activity. And it talks about our class outcomes from our online classes, because there are no in-person classes right now. But folks said that the class helped them learn and develop new skills, be in community with other people, and increase confidence, boost self-esteem, work on recovery. And that's just something that happens in classes that we evaluate. But then when we get to kind of recovery outcomes, because folks that we support, usually all of us, every single one of us has experienced some type of trauma in our lives to varying degrees. So we ask folks to rate how our programs have impacted their recovery issues. 95% respond that it positively impacted their mental health and behavioral health issue, which is the number one issue that that people identify with. You know, May, the month coming up, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we will be celebrating that again with our Art Transforms Us programming. And we think it's really important to destigmatize mental health and to talk about it. And art can help, and to illustrate the impact of art on mental health. 35% reported positive impact on physical health, which sounds kind of funny until you look at some of the scientific data that illustrates that art actually does support your physical health and well-being. And then 14% of respondents listed other impacts such as alcohol, substance use disorder, overcoming a learning disability, class provided attention and focus away from physical pain, and help folks provide friendships. Here we just have some quotes from our amazing artists. An amazing class that allowed me to step outside of my physical constraints and be the creative free spirit I always wanted to be. Being a disabled US Navy veteran, I am challenged daily to leave the discipline and structure behind and become a better version of myself. I thought that was kind of an interesting quote. We also, I didn't mention it, there wasn't a slide for it. There should have been that we have a veterans cohort, which I mentioned, which is available to any veteran, regardless of income. And I became more vulnerable, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to share who I really am. Again, that speaks to the identity piece, how art can transform us and transform our own relationship with our identity. And so when I talk about, so any more questions, Will?
Yeah, there are a couple.
Okay, great.
So one of them is, how did your relationship with art begin?
My personal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I do is about path with art. That's it. Well, my personal relationship with art began early. My mother's a painter, a figurative painter. She works in oil, and she's quite an accomplished painter. And so I grew up at art fairs. And so in fact, many people, their memories of their mom are like Chanel No. 5 or whatever, perfume your mom might have worn. I noted to my sister one day that, I realized what mom's smell is, because we'll smell her sweaters because we're tactile people. And I said, it's turpentine. So that's our mom's smell. So I grew up with an artist and around artists. And then I also got into filmmaking and enjoy writing as well. Running a nonprofit, I don't get to make as much art as I like to. I have a friend who we're trying to be writing buddies, and we were in the pandemic, and we're trying to get back to it. She runs several arts organizations too. It's hard to do that, but it's important for me to practice what I preach. So.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have time for another one?
I have all the time in the world.
All right, great. How do people find or connect with your services, and how many people do you reach?
Those are two excellent questions. So right now, the majority of folks that we serve come through those 45 social service agencies, and they can be here in Seattle. So they can be, mental health providers like Sound Mental Health, or they can be housing providers, low-income housing, or other kind of support services. And as we've spread out, as we developed like a veterans cohort, that is, then we're working with veterans agencies, and we have a veterans committee, et cetera. So people find us typically through agencies. Sometimes they'll find us through walking by, and sometimes they'll find us online. And then depending on the situation, we can get them connected with a partner, because we have so many partners that they can then participate in our programs. That's for our kind of core programs. But if you want to participate and you're not affiliated with a partner, or you want to volunteer in a classroom, or you want to join some of our community connections programs, people find us mostly through the internet, or they read about us and they find us that way. And last year, in 2019, we served 850 unique low-income individuals through those social service partners, and about 45,000 members of the general public. And we served a little less 700 unique individuals who are kind of our core participant artists last year online, even though it was a pandemic. It was just a little more difficult to get to folks, but was all the more essential. And about 45,000 members of the general public. And we are hoping to build out our own art home to expand that, because in non-pandemic times, we're constrained by space.
Sure. Thank you. So there is one more. They're coming.
Yay! And then I have a video which might prompt more questions.
Yes. Okay. So this one before the video is, do you invite visiting teaching artists?
Excellent question. Actually, we employ about 40 teaching artists. And like I said, one of them is Trempin, MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant recipient, amazing sound sculptor extraordinaire who exhibits his work all over the world. We have local teaching artists. We have a poet laureate teaching artist. We have our roster of teaching artists are amazing. We also have past participants who are teaching artists. So we pay our teaching artists, and so some of them will have, like tomorrow you're getting at Arts and Agency Week, there's a special presentation by a dear friend of mine and one of our teaching artists and an amazing artist himself, David Toby. So I know I'm tuning in for that. But so sometimes we'll have visiting teaching artists, but mostly we have teaching artists who are just kind of with us in our roster. And we pay them.
Thanks.
Okay, so should I play this video or do we have another question? Great.
Who else would like to share, what you've been working on so far? Turley, I see you. Okay.
I've been working on raindrops. I have these little beads.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Because of COVID, arts has suddenly has more value than it's ever had, especially in our community. It helps with isolation, well-being. It helps you engage your mind. We have to carry on providing arts to the most vulnerable in our society.
I'm real happy that Papadar has given me the time to work with my hands. Been a great way to express myself. It brings stuff to you that opens those roads again, those colorful roads.
Something that I'm really enthused about when it comes to Path with Art is accessibility. I can be there to take part in a class when normally I can't travel or interact with people one-on-one very well. And even if my mental health is acting up, I can just park myself in front of a screen and have access to this. And knowing that everybody is probably overcoming obstacles in order to be here. And that Path with Art is kind of giving them that space and trying to figure out a way for them to be there and take part has meant a lot.
I think that Path with Art is good for adults, especially during this time. It keeps us busy. It gives us something to do and kind of expands on old skills and teaches us new skills.
Being in recovery and having a community is so important that when Path with Art reached out and said, hey, we have these tablets, we're going online, it was just so great. They're able to have that support system so they're not just so isolated. And a lot of people found community with that too.
I've been isolated for a number of years because of medical conditions, and because of Path with Art, I now have friends. I have people I can engage with. I don't feel as alone.
Estamos viviendo tiempos muy difíciles, ¿verdad? El COVID nos tiene tan aislados en nuestras casas que para nosotros va a tuitar. Recuerdo las veces que nos dio los talleres por Zoom, ¿verdad? Era algo como una chispa en la casa de cada persona, ¿no? El poder conectarse y tener un espacio para dejar volar la imaginación, para olvidarnos por un momento.
I have nothing but highest praise for Path with Art. People are getting so much support and stimulation and joy out of Path with Art's teaching artists and their offerings.
coming together with other people to make art and being taught new things, it's like you have this completely new way of communicating.
Es como la chispa, ¿verdad? Es una luz que nos da Pat with Art por medio de estos talleres en la comunidad.
That's what I love about Path with Art. We all have a place, you know, and everyone's respected. Like, it's not your age, or how you look, and no matter their circumstances, they matter. Because a lot of times they'll solve people. They want to be heard. They want to be seen.
Well, that's my presentation. And I just want to say that we, you know, I know is talk a lot about Path of Art because that's my job. But really what we're seeing right now is a movement towards an understanding of the impact of creativity and of arts and culture in recovery, and not just at the individual level, but at the societal level. I'm lucky to serve on the Seattle Arts Commission as well. And we're looking at, you know, in the city here in Seattle, but also hopefully at the federal level too, as I've talked to my congressman in our 7th district, Pramila Jayapal, about the value that and the role that arts will play into helping us rebuild from a time where we are divided. We need to be more united. We're broken in so many ways, and we are looking for that brightness and that lift up. And so you walk, and I don't know how it is there, but when you walk downtown Seattle, it's empty. Stores are gone. And so the response to that are storefronts filled with art. I know that Shahira is working with some of our artists to create a storefront to acknowledge the pandemic, call it Shine a Light, through it's an origami project. But you see, art is the response that we have, and that reminds me of that George Braque quote at the beginning, that art is a wound turned into light. And that's what we can do. I think that's our opportunity at the local and regional and national levels right now, if we come together and we all advocate for the value and importance that art can bring us towards societal recovery. And that's the end of my soapbox, Will.
Thank you. That is wonderful to see responses, almost like, you know, the beautiful flowers and plants that grow out of broken concrete and things, to see that response. Exactly.
It's like there's the nature answer to it, right? Mm-hmm. I saw a question. I just peeked into the chat. Yeah. We don't do art therapy, Jade. We actually don't do art therapy. We're an arts organization, and we happen to serve folks who have, like I said, have a lot to benefit from from arts engagement and creative engagement and community. But we don't do therapy. We have social workers on staff, but they're not doing therapy. We're not qualified for that. That's not who we are. We're an arts organization. We just tend to focus on folks who typically don't have access and center them at our work. And we also, and lift up those voices, but we also are this venue to bring everyone together, regardless of background and circumstances in community.
Are you reading the other question?
I can only see part of it on my screen.
Oh, okay. Would you like me to ask it?
Sure. Yeah.
So it says, what is data telling us about trauma and the number of individuals impacted by it?
I would ask you, Will.
Well,
That's your job.
You know, I think it's amazing that people are going through a lot right now, right? And a combination of how isolated are you, how much do your previous experiences either build resiliency or make you more vulnerable to what you're being exposed to. And so I think traumatic experiences don't automatically lead to traumatic stress symptoms, but they can. And I think that giving them the vehicle of art and agency to express, to be heard, to be seen, to be uplifted, is something that builds resiliency and community and builds recovery from traumatic experiences.
I wish I had some, yes, I would agree, Will. And I wish I had some of the data at my fingertips on, there've been a lot of studies on depression, for example, during the pandemic, which has risen, so, and suicide, et cetera. And we've seen this, we see the effects on ourselves, on our neighbors, regardless of circumstance. People, this has been a really hard year, and this past year. And I think people are much more empathetic to the issues surrounding trauma and isolation. I mean, the best of time folks come to Path of Art to deal with isolation. Now we all know just a little glimpse of what that means. But when you're really cut off without a community around you or friendships, et cetera, which that's why we pivoted so quickly to get people tablets who needed them. Because a lot of our folks get internet through the libraries, et cetera. And that wasn't available to them in the pandemic early on. So, but there is a lot of data on the impacts of the pandemic and that feeling of helplessness. I think people can understand that a little bit more, regardless of circumstance.
Yeah. So with that in mind, about the broad impact of not just the pandemic, but civil unrest and everything that we are being bombarded with, what would you recommend as an arts-based organization starting to build a trauma-informed process for, like, where do we begin, and how did maybe our Path to Art that process?
I think Path to Art was built for that. Let me think that through. I'm not one of the founders, so the two beautiful women started this organization, Deborah Blake and Laurel Duty, and they found that making art and community with other women was really healing, and why not go to a women's shelter and do that? And that's how the organization was born. But that is at the center and heart of what we do, is provide arts and engagement to folks who, in a way that helps, that is thoughtful, and give space and give space for everyone to be who they are, which I think is really important. Where understanding is really important right now, and that it's okay to be who you are, and we just make space for that. So there are a lot of really fabulous organizations doing work like this. I'm looking forward to, and I think we might be, we were on the road to doing some arts trainings. I know Arts International and Homelessness International does some arts and cultural gallery trainings, but we're talking about even doing them online, so we can just kind of open up the door to those trainings online, just like we do with our teaching artists, our creative mentors, and we're doing with other arts agencies here. So and the principles are really, and Will, again, I love your feedback, but I am, it's very simple. It's you meet people where they're at, listen. So if someone is giving you a signal that, maybe they don't want a hug that day, you don't go in for the hug. Like, it's just about being aware of where folks are at and allowing them that space to be where they are. Would you add anything, Will?
I think you're right. It is simple at its base. Is you provide a space that is safe, and you hold that space for them to be grounded and build trust in the fact that the space is going to be there, and they're going to be heard and seen and be able to express and have some choice in the matter. And it's a collaborative, communal experience. So I think it is pretty basic, which seems complicated, right, at the same time.
The other thing I would recommend is that it's desirable to want to open up, but to think about what those ramifications are and where each arts organization is and what they can provide. So I think it's really important. That's part of our training with arts organizations, is to do kind of an inventory of where folks are as far as what they want to open up. Because once you do make programs available, I feel very strongly that you need to continue and be consistent with that. Otherwise, because it takes a long time to build trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the same person maybe asked kind of the flip side of it. So the first part of the question was, as an art-based organization, how do you build in trauma-informed processes? And then as a human service organization, how do you introduce the idea of art as a vehicle or a tool in their toolbox if they may not even be thinking about that power of expressive arts? Or
I mean, I also think I misheard the first part of that question, which is there are processes, like we do put them in handbooks. Like we have a handbook for teaching artists, and there are actual processes put in place. But one of them that we talk about is radical hospitality, which is that when someone comes to the door, we let them know that they are welcome. And we hear that from folks like, wow, I feel welcome here. I feel like I matter here. And I don't know if you remember from the last video that I played, but there's a woman on there who says, that's all people want, is they want to be seen and they want to be heard. I mean, that's what we all want, right? So that's a really easy place to start, is with radical hospitality. And then there are just some other principles of trauma-informed care, the kind of do's and don'ts that we may not think about. Don't assume that everyone is housed. Don't assume that you know what someone's life experience is. You cannot solve everyone's problems. You cannot avoid triggers. What to do if someone is triggered. Those kinds of things, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. So what does a typical, if this is even a correct word, what does a typical session or experience look like? Is there a structured process, or is it more free student?
Oh yeah, well, so we're an arts organization. I like to say we are a comprehensive arts organization. We put on shows, we have exhibitions, but at the core of that is providing people access to make art, and working with teaching artists, and also to witness art with our arts and cultural partners. And so it looks like working with a teaching artist over an 8-week process of learning a specific, whether it's ceramics or poetry or spoken word, Shakespeare, drumming. We're very multidisciplinary here at Path of Art, but you work with a professional teaching artist who teaches you an art skill. And that can, depending on the teaching artist, be more or less prescribed. Some teaching artists are showing you techniques, and some teaching artists are, maybe a little more prescriptive. Maybe you have to be when you're teaching someone how to play guitar. So it's really depends on both the medium and the teaching artist. And then we also do these site-based workshops where we drop in and do something a little bit more accessible. For example, it may not be as in-depth like a print making. It might be more, or it will be something that you can do, a one-time thing, such as the erasure poetry that we looked at earlier. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah.
It's not your question, so.
Yeah.
Well, anything else?
I'm not seeing anything come through right now, but.
Well, I hope that if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. As Will and Erie Arts and Culture know, I'm easy to find and hard to reach. But if you reach out to us at info@pathofart.org, someone will be much more prompt in answering your emails. And keep the questions coming. We we want a dialogue, and our vision really is that world where arts is recognized, is transformative. I think we're beginning to see it, and also to connect all of us through the arts. So that means all of our arts organizations, our practitioners, etc. I'm really looking forward to the rest of this week, and which is, I guess, it closes tomorrow, right?
Yeah. It's tomorrow's the last day of all of the presentations, so definitely invite everybody to join in.
Well, I'll be watching, and yeah, and I have to support my friend David Toby, who's amazing, and it's just been an incredible week. I just thank Erie Arts and Culture for doing the Arts and Agency Week. What a brilliant name for a series. I hope it continues.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Holly, for bringing the light and sparking interest in Path with Art here over on the other side of the country in Erie.
Yeah. Thanks to Zoom.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, Will. It's been nice chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Erie Arts and Culture as well.
Thank you, Erie.